Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today is the February wrap up. It's March 1st and February is over, so it is time to talk about what I actually managed to read in February. I want to first off say I failed the Chunin Exams, okay? I failed my Naruto TBR challenge, so we're gonna start off with those books. So, if you watched my TBR, you would know that I was supposed to read The Priory of the Orange Tree for a card I chose from the challenge, which was like longest book on my TBR. Well, I didn't read this. And I actually realized, oh my God, even though this book is, what, almost 800 pages, it's actually not the longest book on my TBR. It was The Burning White by Brent Weeks. So I had both of these on audiobook and I thought, you know what? Let me just go ahead and stop reading Priory of the Orange Tree. I'm not really feeling it right now. I need to finish this series anyway. It's something I wanted to try to accomplish last year. So go, do it, girl. No, I failed. And let me tell you, that book is almost 1,000 pages, The Burning White by Brent Weeks. And you know, I'm not saying I've DNF'd these in the sense that I will never pick them up again. I'm not in the mood for thick mama fantasy books right now. Like, I could see myself getting into The Priory of the Orange Tree because it's a standalone, from what I believe. I'm pretty sure this is a standalone book. The Burning White, that's the 5th book in the Lightbringer series, and you know, I feel bad because I am kind of feeling like I'm over it for now. And I'll tell you why. There's so many things going on in that universe. And if you've read the series, you know what I'm talking about. So many different characters, so many point of views. There's a war going on, Gavin Dazin, Kip, Tia, blah, like there's so many people that you have to follow. Listening to it on audiobook, like so bad. I had to force myself to listen to it at times when when most of the time I was listening to the last podcast on the left. If you can kind of see like pink emanating around me, I did strip lights in my office. I got a new desk, which I want to show people soon. It's pink. And you know, several times I was like, okay, you need to listen to The Burning White. Let's get it going. When I tell you, I absorbed nothing. There's 3 epilogues I found when I looked at the chapters. I'm just kind of feeling like this is so long for no reason, but we have so much to wrap up. So I have no idea when I'm gonna finish that series. With it being over 1,000 pages, I just don't know. I just don't know if I can do it. So this is where I failed. I failed by not reading this, and then also not reading The Burning White. So with that, you shall see in my next video, my TBR for March, what I have to endure, because I have a lot of books I have to pick for the TBR game. So, you know how I said wish me luck last time? You're gonna really have to wish me luck this time, because my God. Next up, I read volumes 6 through 10 of The Promised Neverland. So far, I'm really enjoying the series. Right now, this takes up basically maybe I shouldn't say that. So if you've watched the anime, you'll know that someone, something, somehow has escaped, right? And now we're following the escapees. And you also get you find out what's actually going on with Mr. Minerva, I think that was his name. The books that they find in the Grace house, I think it's called, where all the kids are raised, they actually start to discover more information about the world they're living in. Still really liking the characters, still really like Emma. Was really surprised when we see what we find out later about maybe someone being alive, and I'm really excited about that. when we find out what's going on with the demons versus humans and what the kids think is happening versus what's really happening, I'm enjoying it. I really like where the story's going, and I am invested in the children. And I'm not really somebody who likes to read about kids. I think I've mentioned this, but these kids are super smart. So they're not making a lot of bad decisions. But I mean, even adults in books make bad decisions, and it's just so frustrating to read. But so far, I really like this. And I don't know that this will become like a favorite manga of mine, but it's definitely one that I would recommend. I mean, it's super long, so there's a lot going on, and it's definitely keeping me interested in the story. All right, one of the audiobooks I said I was going to listen to, which I actually did, was Lead from the Outside, How to Build Your Future and Make Real Change by Stacey Abrams. I rated that 5 stars. I thought it was a great memoir. I enjoyed learning more about Stacey Abrams, her early life. And honestly, I think we weren't surprised to know that she was constantly trying to be in a place where she thought she deserved to be, which she did, asking questions, not taking no for an answer. And I definitely enjoyed listening to this. I did know that she had a second book. I can't remember who just talked about the second book, but I'm definitely going to read that one. And like I said, I gave this one 5 stars. The next audiobook I finished was Bevelations, Lessons from a Mother, Auntie, and Bestie by Bevy Smith. That was another one that I gave 5 stars. I love that audiobook. I didn't mention that Stacey Abrams narrated hers, but I love the fact that both of them narrated their own audiobooks. It was amazing. I am not totally familiar with Bevy Smith. She was on a show called Fashion Queens with Lawrence and I can't remember the other hairstylist that like I think most of us are familiar with from Houses of Atlanta, but listening to her story was hilarious. She is a hilarious woman. The mix of, you know, more serious topics and then her just randomly talking about her sexcapades was hilarious. But it was nice to get to know her more. But the thing I found really interesting about Bevy Smith, and it's something that I think most women know, that this is a woman who, even though her Bevy Smith was kind of like her persona, there are 2 sides to the coin. You know, she would call herself Little Brown Bevy, talking about when she was younger, she was more quiet, she liked to read. That person is always still within her, but you know, she still is tall, loud, you know, curvy, boobs spilling out. Like, these 2 things are both her. You know, she is quiet and a reader, and also somebody who's funny, loud, and honestly the center of attention. And the thing I found really interesting, and I think is very common, is that she was in relationships with several men who clearly met her and saw her as Bevy. And every single time she would kind of talk about, not every single one, but almost every single guy that she spoke about that she was in a relationship with, there's always this moment where they tried to change her. Whether it was a man who was like, why are you dressed like that at a beach? Like, why, you know, can't you wear something a little bit more covered up? To someone else, like, you're just too much, you know, can't you just like dial it down a bit? Such a frustrating thing to constantly see all the time. A woman who is, you know, at a 10, a man meets her at a 10 and always wants to dial her down to like a 2 because you shine so bright. I don't want you to shine that bright. I hate stuff like that. But her personality is fantastic. And she too, someone who wouldn't take no for an answer. So it was really cool to listen to 2 books by 2 different women who both had that same drive and, you know, message. So 5 stars for that one. The next book I read was Grey's Sister by Mark Lawrence. And you know what? I rated this 5 stars. Yeah, I know. I said I hated the first book. Well, no, did I say I hated it? I didn't really like it that much. And I definitely didn't sound super excited to read the second one, but I did. I picked it up. I couldn't put this thing down. Okay, this was amazing. I liked the second book in the series, and I know why. The reason is because it doesn't take place the entire time in the school. It's not just the day-to-day, wake up, go to classes, maybe something happens, And the same routine over and over again. It's totally different, although it was getting kind of frustrating to see just how many people want to fuck with Nona, okay? You have Jolie in here who wants to mess with her. Why? Why can't you just let this girl be? She's like 2 years younger than everybody, just trying to live. That's infuriating. I hate reading stuff like that, but I know it is what it is. Like, that's just how it's going to be. But I loved this. You got to see the perspective of Nona, which we're all used to, but also Abbas Glass. I really like Abbas Glass. You know, we get little bits of her in the first book, but in the second book, you get like whole chapters devoted to what she's going through, a little bit of background, and there's a lot of political intrigue in this. I think that this book had me understanding the world much better. And I've recently started Holy Sister, and it's the same thing. It could have just been me. I can't speak for anybody else, but for me, I don't feel like I really grasped the world that they live in the first book. I may have just missed something, because I did put it down for a minute, but in this book and following the third book, I'm really getting a better understanding of what world we're actually living in, what the stakes are, and what's actually happening. So I have a feeling that I'm gonna really like the third book. So yeah, I gave this 5 stars, and I liked it. And you know what? I'm gonna try to reread the first book at some point, maybe come into it after finishing the whole series and see if I can pick up things that I totally missed, and maybe is the reason why I didn't really give it a good grade. So good freaking book so far. Next up is The Doll's House by MJ Arledge. This is book 3 in the Detective Helen Grace series. I loved this book, okay? I'm actually really mad I didn't read this earlier. And I always do that. Like, there's always this one book that I keep saying I'm gonna read this, and I never get to it, and then I devour it. It was so, I couldn't put this book down. My husband almost burned the house down cooking dinner, and I just couldn't stop. Okay, you should have seen how smoky this house was when he was cooking chicken the other day. This was fantastic. So, Helen Grace, she's a detective. She is still in the same position that she's been in the last 2 books. And if you've read the series, you know that she has a boss. Her name is Harwood, and she just has it out to get Helen. That's probably the only kind of trope I really don't like in detective novels with women as the like protagonist. I think that's just so frustrating to read about this female cop who's just not doing anything. She's just doing her job. Helen Grace just comes to work. Yes, she's got some stuff on the side. You know, she's trying to, you know, release some pain and shame that she's got going on from her past. But she just wants to do her job. And just because she's good at it, okay, she's clearing cases. Just because she's good at it, there's somebody else who's like, well, she's just such a, you know, all about the fame, all about the glory. She's not a team player. That's not even true. Like, it just drives me crazy. But guess what? This was really good. There was a little conspiracy going on in the background, trying to bring Helen down. No, not working. But the case was really interesting. Basically, we open up with a young girl is found at a beach. She's dead. And we also are opening up to a woman who is kidnapped. She doesn't know where she is, and more bodies keep getting found. And now we have to connect the case to see if now the woman who's gone is actually a part or gonna be next up on the slab. That sounds really dark. But yes, I really loved this. I liked the ending. The murderer was really interesting. One thing I really like about the Helen Grace series is, and I'm sure this is similar to other detective novels, but especially in here, you really think they caught the person, okay? Because it, you know, it's different point of views in the book. You're seeing the point of view of the killer, and maybe the person they caught who really does some things that sounds like what the killer's doing, it's not. So I really enjoyed this one. I think this one is actually my favorite, mainly because of, I really liked the case, but I really liked the failed attempt to bring Helen down, okay? You're not gonna get my girl, all right? She's still gonna be solving cases every day, so stop it. So I rated this 5 stars. Like I said, I couldn't put it down. My house we almost choked on smoke. Like, my husband wasn't, I don't want to talk too bad about my house. He was just, let's just say I do the cooking, okay? And I do it well. So that's how good this one. I was willing to hurt my lungs because of smoke in my house just to finish this. Love you, husband. Love you, Debbie. The next book I read was Get a Life, Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert. I was going to read Love and Color, and I just wasn't in the mood for it. And I kept looking at this book on my shelf, and I thought, you know what, let me give it a try. I loved this book. So I rated this 4 stars, and this is book 1 in the Brown Sisters trilogy. I believe it's going to be a trilogy because there's 3 sisters, but who knows? Maybe we'll learn about the grandma and the aunt. That would be a nice little read because they're both very interesting women. But this was a great book. Chloe Brown is awesome. I really loved her. She's hilarious. I loved the back and forth that she had with Red, who is the love interest in this book, though I did not like him. I haven't watched a lot of people and their reviews of the book because I really wanted to I wanted to go in this not knowing anything. So when people had been talking about this, I skipped through their reviews of it. Just, I know that people liked it. I didn't like Red. Okay, a lot of anger issues. I hate, here's the big thing about romance. Communication is always the answer, okay? That's always what it boils down to. Had you just communicated your feelings, your thoughts, we wouldn't be here. And, you know, that's real, okay? That's very real. We all know that communication is key in any relationship, platonic or romantic. But Red, with the anger issues, I was not feeling it. I did not like him that much. I was almost honestly kind of like, can I just be friends at the end of this? Like, maybe hook up sometime, because I'm not liking it. Definitely Chloe and Smudge are my favorites. The 2 other sisters, better. Red is somewhere far down below. I just did not care for him. Also don't like, I mean, look, there's some saucy, sexy scenes in here. Okay, they're hooking up. Don't like the C word. It's not that I don't like the C word. It's that I don't find that sexy. I don't want you to be like, let me see, you know, give me that. So that kind of took me out. I mean, sometimes when he's like, see you next Tuesday, I'm like, ooh, just not for me. Just not for me. So that's like the only thing. I don't find the C word sexy. No. So yeah, no, just not for me. But ultimately, Chloe is an awesome character. I would absolutely love to read more about her and Smudge, her everyday life. I want to read just mainly about her, and I don't care for Red. But I would definitely recommend this book. It was a really cute romance. If you don't know, Chloe is somebody who has chronic illness. I believe she has fibromyalgia, and it was really, like, I like when you're seeing, you know, romances where it's like, oh, we're out doing sports, and oh, we're out doing this. But, you know, that's not the reality for everybody. And the fact that Chloe is representing a large number of people that we don't actually hear about often and are constantly dismissed for their pain because you can't see it. I really liked reading about her, and I did like the parts where Red was very comforting and thoughtful. I'll give Red that, but I could have done without him, but that's okay. I would love to read. I also want to know if she becomes really good friends with, I can't remember her name, Smudge's owner. But I'd like to see more of that. So maybe she'll come up in the next books, because, you know, we saw the sisters in this one. I'm pretty sure we're going to see Chloe in everybody else's books too. So 4 stars. I liked it. I also read Night of the Mannequins by Stephen Graham Jones. I rated this 2.53 stars. I went in this not realizing that this was a young adult kind of horror slasher book. So the protagonist whose point of view we're getting is very much a teenager, and I wasn't totally liking that. The mannequin part of it, the scary part, I saw that coming. But I think the thing about it is it's a novella, you know. It would have been really nice if this was a longer book. It doesn't mean I don't recommend it. I absolutely recommend it because it wasn't terrible. But just for me, I didn't enjoy myself reading it. I was glad that it was short just because I found it to be very predictable. But I mean, at the same time, it's such a short book. It's not hard to predict it. So I don't want to like make it seem like I'm complaining about that. I know that it's a novella. I thought the slasher style thing that we were going for was actually pretty interesting. I don't know what the main character's name was. Because I basically read it in a day. So that was very like quick read. But oh God, this is so bad. The killings were interesting. Yeah, it kind of it made me like remember the feeling, how I'm reminded of like Camp Slaughter. Okay, that was a really good book to me. And I think that if this had been longer like that one, and you know, Camp Slaughter wasn't even that long either, but if this was maybe like 100 pages longer, I probably would have liked it, even though the main character is a teenager and everybody else is a teenager. I think I would have liked it more if it had been longer. But like I said, even though I rated it like 3 stars, I still recommend it to other people because you probably like it. I mean, this was like I think it would actually have been really cool to see this as like a short film. I think I would like it more as a short film than reading it as a book. And I have no idea if it is a short film. If it's not, it should probably be made into one. But yeah, I would recommend that people read this, but just not for me. And lastly, I read The Toll by Neil Shusterman. This is book 3, the final book in the Arc of the Scythe trilogy. And I gave this 5 stars. I absolutely loved this final book in the series. I think the conclusion of everything was fantastic. In general, I would absolutely recommend the series, and there's already like 2 people in my life I think would actually really enjoy it. My sister Tiffany, maybe read it, maybe, and then my friend Toria. But I've mentioned this series before. Basically, you're living in a world, it's basically perfect. There is no poverty, there is no homelessness, there's really no crime, and all of that's controlled by the Thunderhead. And they control the food you eat, getting you a job. And like I said, there's no homelessness and there's no poverty. There's really, you have nanites built inside of you to alter your mood. So there's not really anybody suffering from anything else either. And ultimately, the point of Scythe, the book, is that, you've gotten to a point so far in the future where people don't die naturally anymore. So a job that some people have are scythes. They basically kill people. You have the people like Citra and her apprentice, her second apprentice, Scythe Curie, who are a little bit more humane about killing people. It's not something that they do for fun, to get their rocks off or anything. And then you have people like Scythe Goddard, somebody who is considered the new guard, people who are really, really liking violent death. And unfortunately, Rowan, the other person that we're following in the first part of the series, unfortunately becomes his apprentice. So you got 2 people, Citra and Rowan, who basically get brought into the Scythedom under Scythe Faraday, someone who's more like Scythe Curie. They're supposed to become scythes together, but something happens and they're basically opponents. So in the end of the first book, it was supposed to be both of one or the other. At the end of the first book, they're actually supposed to battle it out for the position of being a scythe. So someone would have died in the first book. The second book, also really great. We're following, what happens immediately after, and something else is going on that really just makes the series like truly frightening. Honestly, this book really scared me at times, but and it's hard to explain if you haven't read it. It touched on a lot of things that I think are very, present in the present day that freaked me out. I've mentioned that Scythe Goddard reminds me of somebody, and I definitely felt very shaken sometimes reading the chapters about him and the things that he was doing, the things that he was trying to do to intimidate people. But the third book really brings it all together. You know, we've been kind of hearing and learning about the Taunus this whole time. Now we understand who the Toll is, which I loved that part. I thought it was just such an interesting choice for who gets saved at the end, what the point is. It was just really great, honestly. You know, part of it is the timeline is a little weird. So you see things that happened a few years after the very end of the second book, where Endura is, something happens to Endura and some sites. When we finally find certain people, I was very excited about that. That's what I was waiting for. That's what was keeping me going in this third book. Like I said, I would definitely recommend the series. I think that the third book was fantastic. It ended in a way that I really liked, and honestly, I would want to keep reading. I would want to find out what happens. And the conclusion of everything, what was that damn thing called? The solution that, like, the first sites in the beginning of this whole thing kind of put in place in case some people got crazy, like Goddard, was also very interesting. And, you know, it made me think of, oh man, what was the name of that book? The Inferno by Dan Brown. The very end of that book was, it was an interesting ending. And in this, you kind of similar in that, like, sites are kind of obsolete because of this thing that the first sites did. And, you know, there were plenty of times where I really wanted the Thunderhead to just, like, intervene, make something happen, please, but it couldn't, and that's okay. But yeah, like I said, I would definitely recommend this book, the series in general. I want to do a video about all of my favorite series now that I finished this. But yeah, it was good. I definitely would recommend. And with that being said, it's over. Next video you're going to see from me is what I want my TBR to be. And like I mentioned earlier, I've already taken a look at what happens to those who fail the Chunin exams, and I have a lot of cards to pick. So March is about to be But anyway, thank you for watching my video. If you liked the video, please like the video. If you like it, please subscribe and hit the notification so you can see more of them when I post. So yeah, everybody have a good day and goodbye.